Good morning, Rwandan people, African people, European people, American people. This is Vanti Motivations, and of course, I am Krezo Samuel Habimana, as you know. Today is a special occasion on Vanti Motivations. As you can see, we have the special guest. That I would like them to introduce themselves to you. I would introduce them, but they are older enough, as you can see.
Good day, everybody. My name is Mary Watkins. I am from Wales, which is a very small country in the UK, and it's lovely to be here with my friend Samuel.
Good, Mary Watkins from Wales. And
hello, good morning. I'm Glyn Watkins, also from Wales. I'm Mary's husband, and I'm really pleased to be back in Rwanda once again after all this time. Okay,
good.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's great to be here. The people from Vanti Motivations, I'm really that they are praised today because it's the first time we receive a couple. And it's the first time, and this is the first interview we're going to do in the foreign language, in English. So I think they will appreciate and love it as well. So our interview is going to be based, or our conversation is going to be based on different things as well. We shall talk on rugby because, as you can see on their t-shirts, there is Friends of Rwandan Rugby. So in the introduction, they said that they are Mary Watkins and Glyn Watkins from Wales. And of course, people should know that Wales is among the first countries that play rugby that much. So being with the people from Wales immediately make me talk about rugby. And of course, we are in rugby as well. We shall also talk on education. So we shall see the link of praise and games in education and how they can, if they can even play an important role in education. We shall also talk on other different things, but have even fun in the talk, because I'll be having like some fun questions to ask you so that we can even laugh too.
I hope so. Good.
I hope so. And we have started laughing. Do you mind, please, if you let people know, you said that you are Mary Watkins. Who is exactly Mary Watkins?
Okay, well, I am a teacher. I was a teacher, a primary school teacher in Wales for about 20 years, and then I worked in the conservation sector as an education officer for a water company for another 10. And then in 2013, I was given an opportunity to go with VSO and volunteer in Rwanda. So I became a methodology and resources advisor for VSO for a year at TTC Maruru, and had an absolutely brilliant year. I loved it so much that when I went back, I couldn't wait to come back to Rwanda. So I then came back as a district teaching advisor in Nyamasheke district in 2018, working on the Building Learning Foundations project, which is a UK aid funded project working in all primary schools across Rwanda. So I think that's me in terms of what I do. What I am, well, I am Welsh, and as our national sport is rugby. I enjoy rugby. I don't play, but I enjoy watching rugby. And when we were in Rwanda, I'm sure Glyn will mention that he had an opportunity to start teaching some rugby, and that was when Glyn found out about the charity. And since then, we have supported the charity. In 2018, we heard that the charity was going to fold, and all the rugby development officers would lose their jobs, because the couple that were running the charity were no longer available to do this. So we took the decision to take it on. So since the beginning of 2019, we have been on the board of trustees, Glyn is the chairman, and that has brought us back to Rwanda. There's many other reasons for coming back to Rwanda, but the rugby is our main focus within Rwanda.
Rugby is your main focus. You mentioned that you came in Rwanda in 2014 as a when we're teaching at TTC Maruru, and of course that's where I have met. It was a very good moment spending a year with you at the college, and I have learned a lot from you that I'll be talking about in the conversation. So Glyn, would you mind, please, if you also introduce yourself in that way.
Yeah. Many of my story is the same as Mary's, with the links with Rwanda, because they all began in 2013. I think I should mention something about Mary and myself is that we have 2 children, both now grown-up children, and really it was when the children were of a certain age that we were able to come away and spend originally 1 year in Rwanda and then another year later on. So in terms of our time in Rwanda, Mary was a methodology and resource advisor, but I was working for the district of Ruzizi as a teaching and methodology advisor. So I was traveling throughout areas of Ruzizi. So I worked in Gashonga, I also worked in Rimbogo, visited many schools, visited many really, really good teachers, and advised those teachers on how they could become even better, which was very exciting for me, and I think very rewarding for myself, and also for, I hope anyway, for the teachers. And we came back in 2018. We were very fortunate that Mary had another post with VSO, and I worked for a small charity in Ruzizi called, originally called Rwanda Aid, but now called Rwanda Action.
Okay.
A fantastic charity based in the UK, but has worked in Ruzizi and Yamasheke. So I was working there as a disability advisor, and again, very rewarding year for me, and very exciting to work with that charity. And then afterwards, I think the passion for rugby, we were able to take on the roles within Friends of Rwandan Rugby, and since we've taken on leading Friends of Rwandan Rugby, it's gone from strength to strength, so that now we have 11 full-time rugby development officers in Rwanda. By the end of 2022, we hope to have another 4 full-time rugby development officers working in different districts. So Rwandan rugby, we focus on grassroots, developing rugby in the schools, and developing rugby in the communities for children. And then we all work also with the Rwandan Rugby Federation to help develop rugby for adults, for men, for women, boys and girls. So we are trying where we can to develop rugby throughout.
So many people believe that or think that rugby is a fighting game. Because the way it is played, as you can see it, if you didn't play it, you can think like the people are fighting. Yet, maybe, and that's why I'm saying maybe because I'm not sure, and that's why maybe it is not well developed in different countries. If I'm not right, you say it. Then I want to know what pushed you, what motivated you to fall into rugby, and now you are pushing it, and you are the Friends of Rwandan. You are in the Friends of Rwandan Rugby, so that to promote rugby in Rwanda, in other countries as well. So what motivates you, both of you? Because you are even you are in rugby. So what is your motive, Mary?
Well, I think it started with a conversation with the principal of TTC Marura at the time, Brother Prote, who spoke to Glyn and said, the Welsh, you are not good at football, but you are good at rugby, and I want a rugby team. And he really wanted a rugby team in the school. So that was where he persuaded Glyn to start. They had one rugby ball. They didn't really know what they were doing with it. It was just being thrown around during time of sport. So Glyn introduced some rugby sessions. So Brother Prote requested that Glyn would come along in the time of sport in the afternoons and to help the rugby team, which he did. But we felt that as time went on and they needed further skills, that we needed some qualified rugby coaches within Rwanda. So that was when Glyn did some research and he found out about this charity, Friends of Rwandan Rugby, who were working in Rwanda but not in Western Province. So we requested and we covered the costs for 2 rugby development officers to come over a period of, I think it was 6 weekends. They came for Saturday and Sunday and they did 3 trainings with the rugby team, and just from that the TTC Maruru rugby team grew and grew, and they did very well in the school sports competition. I think they got to the semi-final, and considering they'd only been playing rugby for a few weeks, they did really well. Well, we stayed in touch with Friends of Rwandan Rugby and we supported them. Every year they bring a group of UK coaches to Rwanda to work to develop the skills of rugby and to introduce rugby into a new area. So we go to an area where a child has never seen a rugby ball before. And a rugby ball, for those of you who have not seen a rugby ball, is a very funny shape. So when it bounces, you don't know which direction it is going to bounce in. Yes. So it is a very funny thing to experience for the first time. So we bring coaches over and we go to a new area and we work with 4 primary schools. We introduce tag rugby, which is a safe, non-contact rugby. You were talking about fighting.
Yeah.
They do not touch each other. They have a special way of playing rugby which involves a tag, which is like a belt that comes here, that when you pull it, it comes off. And this is the way we tackle. So they come, they introduce it, and then at the end of the week we play a tournament between the schools. And then the charity employs a rugby development officer to stay in that area so it is sustainable. So that really was how it started. And then when we were here in 2018, working again, as Lynn said, he was with Rwanda Action, I was with VSO, we were contacted by some of the rugby development officers who informed us that the charity was finishing. The trustees were too busy with other things. The charity had been running for a number of years and it was going to end. So we thought that that would be a big pity, because although rugby is growing and developing, it still needs more help. So that was when we discussed and we decided to take on Friends of Rwandan Rugby. So Glyn is now the chairman, I am the secretary, and we are continuing the work of the charity, but I think we are managing to improve it. We have more time to spend on it, so it's doing very well and we're very happy, and also it's a good excuse to come back to Rwanda. Okay. We love coming.
That's good. What can you tell those people who think that rugby is aggressive? Is an aggressive?
Well, I think you're right that rugby is contact. Proper rugby involves contact between often quite big men, and it can look very aggressive. However, a very important sort of part of rugby is the discipline needed to play the game. And one of the big differences between rugby and football, and I'm sure many of your viewers will know very well football, and will very well know that if a referee in football makes a decision that a footballer is not happy with, the footballer often will abuse the referee, shout at the referee, even swear at the referee, and sometimes the referee may give him a yellow card. But in rugby, that never happens. There is a respect for the players have a great respect for the referee. So even if the referee makes a mistake, and many do, all do, because they are human beings, even if they make a mistake, the players respect the decision. And that is a very big part of the attraction of rugby for me, is that it introduces this level of respect and discipline. Of course, because we are from Wales, we've grown up with rugby. We've grown up with rugby, and one of the most important changes I've seen in rugby in my lifetime is that now rugby is played by boys and girls, men and women. And women's rugby and women's sport now is a very big part of the development of rugby, so that we are very keen in the Rwandan context that as many boys as girls play, and as many men and women as we can play the game for enjoyment and to enjoy this sort of the community feeling that rugby has. And I think that's what I would say about why rugby, because of those qualities of discipline, community, and helping each other, and respect.
Respect. And that's the qualities that everyone would strive to having to, because those are the qualities: having discipline, having respect, helping each other. That's the quality everyone should have.
Yes, yes, they're very important.
I think one thing we probably should mention when we're talking about rugby and how people perceive it as a dangerous sport. And when you are tackling in rugby, it can be dangerous. And as Glyn said, the referee, he's not just there to referee the match, he's also there to keep people safe. So he will ensure that, that there is no dangerous play. Or if he sees dangerous play, then he will stop the game. In primary schools, however, we do a lot of teaching of rugby in primary schools with our rugby development officers, but they do not teach them contact rugby. So they don't see the fighting that people perceive. As I say, this is tag rugby, which is a safe, the children do not tackle, they do not put their arms around each other, it is non-contact. The only thing they make contact with is this belt, this tag belt, which they pull to remove. They do not touch the other person. So I think that's important.
That's simple. Of course, rugby should be developed. Is it?
Is it being developed?
Should be developed. Maybe I did not complete the question. It should be developed to the level that even the audience, the fans, the people, the general public, should acknowledge it.
Do you mean like raising the awareness?
The awareness of it. Because most of the time you go on the pitches when they're playing rugby, you find only the players, no audience. What do you think needs to be done so that here in Rwanda, we are in Rwanda, let me profit this occasion to talk about it, or the setting of Rwanda. What do you think needs to be done so that Rwandan rugby as a whole, when saying as a whole I mean rugby at the schools, for the primary, secondary, university, and there's the clubs, because we have so different clubs in Rwanda, and the national team of Rwanda. Be a game, or a game that can be played professionally. Be a game that can be played as a way of entertaining people. Of course, entertaining people, learning from it, because you say that there is discipline, respect, helping each other in life, but also be a game that the players can consider as a profession.
Okay, I think the important word to consider here is development. And it's impossible really to have a professional sport of rugby in Rwanda at this time, because there is just not the level of numbers of people who are interested, numbers of players, and also the ability of the players. So we are starting from a low level, but when I think of where we were just 4 years ago, we had how many, Mary? How many rugby development officers did we have?
5 or 6.
Yeah, we had 5 rugby development officers. Now we have 11. By the end of this year, we will have 15. So you can see from that, if we're talking about development, we've gone from 4 to 15 in a short time. Each of those rugby development officers are working with 10 primary schools, 6 secondary schools. So you can imagine how many children are being introduced to rugby. Those children have the knowledge of rugby now. Some of them will not play rugby when they leave school. Some will. Some of those will be very good, some won't. But the ones that are very good will pass on the information to other people. Maybe they become a teacher themselves, maybe they become a coach. And you can see with this how it develops. Yeah? From small beginnings. It's like a tree. A tree starts with a small seed. Yeah. So rugby in Rwanda is developing. I think to consider a time where there would be professional rugby played in Rwanda, I think this is a long, long way away.
Long way.
But there are people who are, it is their job, they are earning an income through teaching rugby, and I think there are many stories of success stories, if you like. So for instance, that discussion that Glyn had with Brother Prote in TTC Maruru when there was no rugby, as a result of that, one of the star players of TTC Maruru team, he set up his own club, Donasian. He has represented his country. He's played for the Silverbacks 4 times, I think, now. So he's travelled to other countries as a rugby player. He's a rugby development officer for us, and that is his career. And so that was just one person, and he has taught rugby within Maruru sectors at club level and with many schools that he works with, and some of those have gone on. So he's now moved to Huye. So we needed a rugby development officer in Rusizi. It was no problem because he had worked so hard in that area that there was one boy who, David, who we said, yeah, he can do it. So he's now taken on the job. So he's just finished school and he's gone straight into a job in rugby. So I think it's more than just talking about profession and players who are being paid. It's more than that. It's more about, you know, what we're giving. And I don't think you can underestimate the importance of sport in school for health and well-being. Our rugby development officers, they motivate the children. The children will go back and they will have increased concentration in classroom. So they will perform better in the academic subjects because of the energizing effect and the pleasure that they get from playing rugby. So I think it gives so many things. We also have plans. We have funding. It would have happened by now if it wasn't for COVID. We have funding to train teachers in schools to be able to deliver tag rugby. So we have funding for all the equipment, and we will be training, I can never remember how many teachers, was it 300?
Yes, 300.
So 300 teachers across Rwanda who will then be able to deliver rugby as the physical education which is on the timetable in schools. So we are going to get, and as we mentioned, the disciplines and the ethos of rugby, which is so important, but also I think the health, the well-being, the mental well-being, it all comes into it. I mean, we do it through the medium rugby, but it's sport. Yeah, sport is very important. So,
and I think with to consider professional rugby, I mean, even in Wales, which has a long history of playing rugby, we have a very, very small number of professional rugby players. We have maybe 100 maximum professional rugby players. Everybody else in Wales who play rugby, and there are many, many hundreds of thousands of people do, play for pleasure, play as amateurs, play for their community. So I think it's a long way away to consider that there could be professional rugby in Rwanda. However, I think there are opportunities for a Rwandan who became really talented at the sport to find work as a rugby player, maybe in a neighbouring country, maybe in South Africa. Like with professional footballers, okay, you consider how many professional footballers from Africa now make their living in England, in the Premier League.
Yes.
When you watch a Premier League, I watched Arsenal yesterday, many very talented African players making a very good living. So I think maybe there is an opportunity in years to come.
What do you think are the strategies or tactics that needs to be taken, one, for the rugby players to change the mindset? Because maybe most of them may think that since we are going to play rugby, we have to earn money in rugby. That can be one. The second thing, now you are introducing women.
Can you hear that, Valent? That was a bang, wasn't it?
that's a balloon. There's a kid with a balloon.
Is it?
Yeah. And this is the set off the alarm.
You want a female like the girls and the women play rugby.
Yeah.
The parents' mindset may be like not only the girls or the female, but also the other children. Maybe the parent may say, this game that we're going to play is this and this. What are you gaining from it? So I'm eager to know the strategies. One maybe for the players who think that starting playing rugby, we're going to earn in the terms of finance. The second, the mindset on the general public, on how they perceive rugby, so that if the mindset's changed and the rugby is developing, we can see even like people coming to support rugby at the pitches. Last time I was at Amaho National Stadium watching it was big ant sevens.
Yeah.
I don't remember where Rwandan sevens rugby, but you could only see mostly the players and the other people who might be in the logistics.
A small fan base.
The small fan.
Yeah.
What can we do to increase the fan base?
I think there were some supporters there, and one of the problems is that the players, they don't have that many games, and there aren't that, because tournaments are very expensive. But that big ant tournament, now they've secured the funding for it to be an annual event, and we have plans when we come in May. We are bringing coaches to come and do the tour that I already mentioned, where we go to an area where there's no rugby and we introduce rugby, but we're actually running 2 tours at the same time, and we're bringing a group of about 20-25 players from the UK and from Germany. There's a few other countries involved, and they're going to come and they're going to train with and play against the Silverbacks. So they're very excited because they're going to be playing an international team. The Silverbacks are world rugby ranked. So there's going to be team. There's also going to be a sevens tournament. So these players from the UK are going to come, and the club sides will have an opportunity to come and play. So I think really it's important that when we do have these events going on, that they are well promoted, so people know that they can come and watch. And they don't charge entry for them, so people can come. I think maybe this time one barrier could have been the fact that because of COVID, you need to make sure that everybody is safe, so everybody had to have taken a COVID test, so obviously there's a cost there, which may put people off. But going forward in the future, I think promotion, I think using social media, making people aware that it is going on, because I have many friends in Kigali and they didn't know anything about it. So I think it's down to the Rugby Federation to make sure there is good promotion and advertising, and also we help with this too. So I think that will help. The other thing that is very important is that when our rugby development officers are teaching rugby in schools, whether it's tag rugby or with the secondary schools if it's contact rugby, is that they arrange tournaments between the schools. So there are district tournaments, and we invite officials from the district and the sectors come along and watch, and the children in the school come along and watch. And I mean, we have many people who come to those. So although it's only on a small level, you may have several thousand people watching that tournament, and this may be their first experience of seeing rugby. So I think we really need to promote and push and inform people, and slowly I think the fan base will grow.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think also I would encourage you to consider not so much the monetary reward that playing rugby could bring to you, but we were talking earlier about the features of rugby, like discipline and commitment, community. These are really the wages of a rugby player. And I know we all need money to buy bananas. Okay, I know this, but we need to make sure that the values of rugby and are values that will help a rugby player, whether it's a man or a woman, to go forward, maybe to do better in their job, maybe to do better in their education. Because I think for a rugby player in Rwanda to take up the sport and think that, oh, maybe I can make my living with this, it's really too far away. Okay. it is the same as a child playing with a football, thinking I can go and play for Arsenal. It is a long way away.
Yeah, it can be
It's
a
not
dream.
impossible.
Yeah, it can be a dream, but you cannot rely on it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and I think as well, rugby. If you play rugby, or you play for a club, or you play in your school, it only takes up a very small amount of your day in
Yeah.
terms of your life. Yeah, so it's not something that you think, well, I can't do it because I'm not getting anything from it. I'm not getting any money, or I'm not earning my living. You're doing it as a sport. Maybe you go running. Okay, running is good. It's very good for you. All the rest of it, but it is a lonely sport. Rugby is a team sport, and you have your rugby family.
Wow, that's very good. Despite the fact that COVID has come and impacted different sectors, including life as well, there is still a hope that there might be a development of rugby in different countries. Where do you see Rwandan rugby, or what is the future of Rwandan rugby in your eyes in 10 years to come?
Okay, in 10 years, I would hope that each district in Rwanda will have a rugby development officer. I would hope that that will mean that there will be many, many, many more children introduced to the game of rugby. There will be more clubs. We have in Rwanda now, how many, Mary? Is it 9?
Well, yeah, I'm not sure. There are some clubs that are just forming, so if you
Yeah.
include them all, there's probably more
I
like
think there are
15,
9.
but 9
I think there
registered.
are 9 in the National League. I would imagine, I know that there are plans for more clubs even in the next 12 months, but I would imagine that in 10 years, I hope that there will be at least double the number of clubs in the National League. And at international level, then I think if Rwanda can keep the numbers of players in the clubs increasing, that will mean that the national team can be stronger, because you have more of a pool of players to choose from. I would like to see Rwanda at the international level playing against nearby countries first of all, organising maybe an annual tournament with maybe Congo, Burundi, or Uganda. Okay, I know these things are often out of the players' hands, but in our country, we play an annual tournament between Wales, England, Scotland, Ireland, and France, and that tournament is huge, and Italy also, and that tournament is huge. Okay, we have maybe 80,000 people coming to see each game, and on television, millions watching.
You have already integrated rugby in education, because we have like tag rugby in primary school, contact rugby in secondary and at university levels. Then what do you think the integration of rugby as a game and the other play as well will have on the improvement of the quality of education?
That's a question for you, Mary.
Well, I've mentioned the health benefits and the fact that it has been proved. There have been many research papers written about how if children have a break and they do some exercise, that they can concentrate better. It's not just children, it's us too. As adults, if you sit in front of a computer screen, or you're sitting and you're listening for a long period of time, your concentration level goes whoop. If you get up and move around and you do something, then you are energized. So I think that is very important. The Ministry of Education has recognized the importance of sport, and it is in the timetable. Schools have to deliver one period of sport every week. There's also the School Sports Federation that supports sport and also competitive sport, tournaments between schools and so on. So there is a place for it, and Rwanda already appreciates and values and understands the importance of sport. We were in Namasheki at Hendezi, and I was talking to the head teacher there, and she also was saying very important, and she wants our rugby development officer to teach all of the children across her primary school to come in and to do one period of sports every week. She appreciates and understands it. The other thing, which was almost as an aside, is that our rugby development officers can deliver the sessions in English. And the instructions that they will use will be the same week in, week out. Stand in a line, form a circle, run faster, pass the ball, catch the ball. So there is a lot of vocabulary that the children will be practicing and hearing. And we also have a plan to put in more cross-curricular links. So for example, if we're passing the ball, we will count. We can count in multiples of 5. We can count in multiples of 3. So we have a plan to bring in particularly mathematics and English in to the sport, as I say, as cross-curricular. It's not a maths lesson, but we are bringing maths into the sport and into the game. And with the, it will help the schools because it is a challenge to deliver in English, particularly in lower primary. So we are hoping that the schools will see our rugby development officers as not just people who are coming in to do sport, but also will help the children with other studies as well. So I think it has a big part to play. And also we mentioned training teachers, so they deliver rugby. That's giving them good skills as well if they can deliver sport. And we're also going to work with the TTCs so that we can train the potential new teachers. They will know how to deliver tag rugby, so when they go on internship or when they get a job, then they also will have. So it's not just the sport; it's much more. But I think it's important
as well. Yeah, very important what you've said, and I think also to add that we are not saying to schools, your sport should just be rugby.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, what we're saying is we would like rugby to be part of your sport program. So we're not saying don't play basketball or football or handball, but we're saying please try this sport as well, because this sport will be very enjoyable, and also because we have rugby development officers who can go into school, they are experts, they can help the children really develop. And to see the children when they compete in the tournament and how their self-esteem, do you understand? How they feel good about themselves, representing their school. This is a big motivating factor for us.
Yeah.
And why we work so hard when we are back in the UK to make sure that the funding is there to continue it.
Yeah. We were in a school in Kamonyi district, and we met the head teacher there. And the pitch was very small because they needed a new classroom, so the new classroom has been built and now the pitch is quite small. But our rugby development officer did a good job, and he managed to train. There were 47 children, and he still managed to organise the children in such a way that they were all active and all taking part. But the first thing the head teacher did when we arrived at the school was to take us to his office and very proudly show us the trophy that they had won at the tag tournament from about 4 years ago, and it was still there. And he said, "Yes, we are the district champions from this tag tournament." So I mean, the head teacher was very happy.
I was saying that it was a great pleasure chatting with you, because it's been a while. I think we last seen when we were there at Remera. I don't remember the name, but it's been like two to 3 years.
Yeah.
So it was very nice having you on Vanti Motivations. The chat was good. We talked about the future of Rwanda rugby, where we think, according to Green, that in 10 years it will be a good game, a good vibrating game in Rwanda.
We hope so.
We hope so. And talked about education and general things. So it was good having you. Thank you for coming, and thank you for accepting my invitation.
Oh,
our
absolute pleasure. I was delighted when I heard from you. It's always nice to see my former students and to follow. I follow with great interest to see how their lives have developed as they've grown up. They're no longer school children. And I would also like to say a thank you to the Tea House for hosting this. This is where we are staying at the moment, and they've been very helpful. And we have lovely accommodation here. They look after us very well. And when I asked them, was it okay if we took some space in there, and they were very helpful to find us somewhere suitable. So a big thank you to them too.
Yes, Tea House. We shall come to. We will take like some highlights to add on this.
Perfect.
Oh, okay, good. They will be very happy.
So thank you very much for inviting us, Sam.
Anybody in Kinyarwanda?
Murakoze cyane.
Murakoze cyane. Yeah.
You know many words because your name is in Kinyarwanda, Kibaya, and Murakoze chat. So thank you very much, dear followers on Vanti Motivations. I usually tell you ko ubuzima bugira imizima mu bazima kukwiye kuba muzima ahazima hazira ubuzima. It was your boy Krezo Samuel. Thank you.